Well, listeners, something different for you this week on the Evolve to Succeed podcast. I had the privilege of recently interviewing Martin Smith of Talent Drive for his own Talent Talks podcast. The conversation was so insightful, with so much sharing by Martin about his own entrepreneurial journey and how he's built his business, with also some personal reflections that I wanted to share that conversation with you. So it will appear slightly different. It is the Talent Talks podcast repurposed for you for this week's episode of the Evolve to Succeed podcast. So welcome, Martin, to your own podcast.
Yeah, thanks for being here to me. Yeah, it's a bizarre seat to sit in today.
Does it feel a little weird?
It does feel odd. I know you did it yourself recently, and it feels quite strange. So
tables have turned.
Tables have turned, yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to our conversation. We want to give your listeners to your podcast a little bit of an insight into you, Martin, the individual, the personality. I'm sure they're keen to hear some of your insights on recruitment and the industry. Yep. And, let's have a bit of fun along the way, I'm sure. But as we kick off the conversation, we probably should start with how you ended up in recruitment and, why recruitment.
Yeah.
And was that at an early age?
Yeah, no, I mean, I wanted to be a teacher, so I went to Loughborough Uni and did sports science, and I was thinking about being essentially a PE teacher, and then I did some work experience at a local grammar school up at Loughborough, and it was an experience, and I've got so much respect for anyone that does teaching. I've got a lot of friends that do it, but I just realised that probably wasn't for me. And then I think, having grown up in Poole, I kind of wanted to experience London. It was almost sort of London first before thinking about kind of career. Applied for a few grad schemes, and then I went on the Guardian job page and I just saw this advert for recruitment consultant, and I was like, what is that? And I remember I still speak to them now and again. They're called the Graduate Recruitment Bureau, and they basically just get graduates from universities into recruitment jobs, basically, sort of startup. And this guy just called me and talked about it. I was like, oh, that sounds fun. And I just remember my first day back after finishing uni, he just got me to go around London, and I was quite a novice in the city anyway. So I'm looking at the tube maps and rushing around, interviewing literally at 10, at half 11 over here, and then sort of just really, really fell into it. And then the first business I worked for was specifically in procurement, and that's how the journey began, I guess.
So has it always been procurement recruitment?
Yeah, basically, I applied for IT recruitment firm. There was one in sort of actually very apt now with sustainability, and then basically this business was procurement. I definitely had to Google it. Didn't know what it was. Couldn't even pronounce it correctly, which I think my old boss told the story
times change.
Yeah, exactly. I've had to learn how to pronounce it right. And then so my first agency I worked for nearly 5 years was purely procurement. Yeah. Really enjoyed it. It was a real growing industry sector, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit more. Just went internal for a bit and then went to my other agency. But always been procurement supply chain. So. And
what were those early experiences in recruitment like?
It's very different to now. So it was in the office every day, shirt and tie. It was old school kind of. Yeah, I mean, we had Google and we had internet and stuff, but It wasn't quite yellow pages and fax machines like some of my old bosses and people tell me. But it was pretty old school. I had a blank piece of paper literally to go and carve a desk and just to cold call A to Z businesses, particularly doing within retail and FMCG sector that had procurement needs. And I would just call A to Z and literally be on the office landline and go, hey, can I speak to, quick frantic look, Martin Smith or whatever, and then I'd get on the phone and just try and sell our services, really.
And how did you, that takes a lot of perseverance at a young age, just out of uni, all of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And was there a moment when you ever thought, this isn't for me?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I actually, so 7 months in, my brother had his first child, obviously back in Dorset, and I was sort of struggling between wanting to come home and see my nephew, and then sort of, because I lived on my own. I lived in a tiny little box room in Highgate in North London, very expensive rent. And it was quite lonely. Not my mates hadn't gone to London, so it was literally just me in the city. And I would go in, and I had a little team we worked with, but it was quite hard work. And that was the point. Probably 7 months in, I had a bit of a wobble, and I considered maybe coming back to Dorset. But sort of stuck at it. Started landing some fees, got my first couple of commission checks, and that does help, right? When you start seeing the fruits of your labour, and you actually realise that, in fact, the first company I ever recruited for. They're a well-known beverage company. And actually, at the end of the call, went well. They gave me the job. And at the end of the call, I actually gave the name of a competitor. So I said, thank you very much for the business. Looking forward to working with, and gave a real live competitor of theirs name. And the guy was like, still got the job on, still managed to sort of just about sort of
You'll make those early mistakes.
Smooth it over, but it was very clunky. I mean, to be clear, like most people, when you start out in a job, you are learning on the job. And my first boss was very good, actually. She supported me. You know, she let me do. You know, you learn by failure, right? And that's very much what my first job was.
And was there plenty of those early mentors around you when you look back now?
Look, so we were a really small company. So I think when I joined, I was only the third hire in. So they had the owner, and then her husband shortly joined afterwards from a competitor to help the growth of the business. And they were great. They were very different in their style and leadership. But they really, they were two people I really looked up to. To this day, from a sales point of view and business win, she's the best person I've ever seen. Just how she could build relationships quickly and get jobs on, basically, for the company. And it was our job to essentially service those jobs. So, yeah, someone that was really good. And the other guy was very calm and considered in approach. So between them, it was quite a nice blend, which... and I remember the first bit of advice, which still sticks in my mind, he sort of said to me, look, you don't be me. Don't be any of the other team. Just pick up little pieces from each person and create your own persona. And that was really valuable, because I think a lot of people go into a new job and just, right, they're doing well, I'm just going to carbon copy them.
Particularly in a sales environment, don't they? Because it's like, well, they're number one seller, what they do, and
yeah,
do that.
Exactly. You've got to kind of create your own authentic self. So that was a real good early lesson to learn. So, yeah, I learned a lot from being in that small business straight away.
Brilliant. And do you want to share just some of your other experiences? Because I really want to come on to talk about Talent Drive and where you are now and why you came to found the business. But is there some of those other early experiences that you reflect on that probably had some significant impact on you, Martin?
Yeah, I mean, so I was lucky. So I worked for two agencies, both husband-wife ownership, interesting dynamics. But I was really lucky to get full visibility to sort of P&L and the mechanics of how a business works at quite a young age. So when I left that first agency, I did a year in-house. I went to Coca-Cola, was like an internal talent acquisition manager. Really interesting. Loved my time there. But I missed the pace and that sort of meritocracy of working in agency. Deliver a fee, you get money, and the variety that an agency you get. Whereas in-house at Coca-Cola, obviously I was just recruiting for those guys. So I did a year there and pivoted back to an agency in Winchester, sort of slowly coming towards home back in Dorset. That was always the plan. And then I had, over 4 years, really happy memories there. But I think for me, the early memories were more just, it was almost throw in the blank sheet of paper, as I said earlier, go out and win some business, win some clients, build those relationships. And I guess for me, I've been really fortunate that a lot of those relationships I'm still working with now and supporting them in their new role or whatever they may be. But yeah, I was very lucky and privileged to have a little bit of the corporate footsie, what that was like, but also two startup businesses, and were sort of part of their growth journey. So I guess that gave me the confidence to start up Talent Drive. Yeah.
And it is interesting, isn't it? Because I have experienced that corporate life on 2 occasions, and I do think I've always taken something away from it, and particularly the big national firm. Before I started Inspire, the advisory firm, I don't think I'd have ever done Inspire without that bit of experience and seeing what the other side
definitely
was like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's exactly the same. And I you're absolutely right. I wouldn't have had the confidence. I think I've always would have done that what if. And the corporate life, I mean, we ran a brilliant grad scheme. It's still there today. The lady I work for there, phenomenal, gave me loads of support. I was going into all the manufacturing sites of Coca-Cola when they make the bottles. I can be really sad, and I can tell you all the index of which plant that bottle was manufactured in. It's still, I think, they're similar. So I loved it, found it really interesting. And I think for me, I learned early on there, you've got to buy into the product or the service that you're having. And I was really passionate about the product. Although I did say in my interview that I don't drink Coca-Cola. So I said that's the HRD that I was interviewing with, which I think she appreciated my honesty. But I said, I don't actually drink the product, but I love what it represents. So
perfect. And what was that moment of realization then, with all of that experience?
Yeah.
What was the moment of realization where I'm going to go and do something for myself?
Yeah, I think I just felt I've always had an itch to do it. I think I've always known, probably at a young age, that I've wanted to do something myself at some point in my career. What that was, what that looked like, didn't know at the time. And I think I kind of got to the start of 2019 and I felt I'd probably taken the role I was in as far as I could I could, which is probably a cliche thing to say, but I just felt that I'd learned a lot, I'd grown, I'd developed, and I just thought there was perhaps something in the market that I could do. There was a bit of an opportunity. And I thought, well, and I chatted to a couple of people that I'm in my sort of trusted circle, and sort of said, well, do you think time's now? And they said, there's never a good time, which I'm sure you'll testify. There's always a wedding or a house move, or
a reason why
there's always a reason. And I think I just said, you know what, I'm fortunate now. Got a loving, supporting girlfriend at the time. House, was on the property ladder. I had some financial security, but not the commitment of family and other things. So I thought, this is the time to do it. And I remember coming on a train home from Winchester one day, and I wrote on my back of my pad just a couple of notes of what I'm going to do, how that will look, and then I still got that pad. But off it went.
Brilliant. Take a photo, frame it.
Yeah.
On the wall. And was there a particular? I think you probably alluded to this. Was there a particular problem in the industry that you thought you could solve, or was there a particular opportunity within procurement recruitment that you could see that others couldn't?
Yeah, I think. So I think from an industry perspective, the recruitment sector gets a bad rap, and there is a lot of what I'd call transactional recruiters. They essentially just put out job adverts, chuck CVs at the wall, and see what sticks. And there is a little bit of that still in the world. But I think I was always brought up in the business I work for not to do that clearly, and have a bit more strategy around what I'm doing. But I think I just felt that there was still the day-to-day resourcing side, but for example, the podcast, other sort of thought leadership aspects to it, rather than just talking to someone saying, can I recruit your jobs? I kind of actually wanted to get to know the people more, put them in the spotlight, do some marketing for them, all part of the service. Podcast obviously was a really good thing to put them in the shop window, as it were, as a leader and as a thought leader in the procurement sector. So I just felt that there wasn't many in our procurement recruitment sector that were doing it that way,
sort of championing
the sector. Just they were almost just being recruiters rather than actually you should be immersed in the procurement community. So I thought, well, let's try and do that. So I just thought that there was a gap in the market that I could go and sort of expose and get into.
Because you're right, aren't you, Martin? Typically, the old-fashioned recruitment, when you're a specialist, whatever the sector, is only that you've got a black book.
Yeah, spot on.
But you wanted to do something different.
Yeah,
you had those contacts and relationships, but represent something in the sector.
Exactly. And I kind of, I wanted to kind of control my own narrative a little bit with that and just try something different. As I said, worked for 2 successful businesses, helped that scale, but I kind of just, look, I want to try it myself, and just, if it fails, I'd be quite confident to know that I could go and get another job in a competitor, or go and do something different. So I think I had that almost maybe naivety, but certainly that confidence to at least go and try it.
Yeah. And is that because you think you've got a competitive spirit?
You know the answer already, yeah.
And I would say you've got this sense of independence, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think growing up there was a few people that said I couldn't do it, and I think that was probably one of the.
Couldn't do what?
Couldn't do it myself.
Okay.
And I think that drove me. Drive, I guess, was one of the sort of premise of the name. Really, I've always been driven. I've always been motivated. But I think. Yeah, I think for me that was one of my burning ambitions. My dad, who's a massive role model to me, was in the same business successfully for 45 years. Probably never happen again now. You don't see that. He worked in the housing sector, and they got many takeovers and various sort of rebrandings, but he was very stable in that role and did really well. And my mum was very much sort of, supporting me and my brother growing up. So I think for me, I saw that and I really respect that, but I was like, I don't want to just work for the same business all that time. So I think the thought of that as well probably drove that a little bit. But yeah, people around me sort of saying you can't. If someone says you can't do something, I kind of naturally go, well, I can. I'll try it. So I think that was probably that. And yeah, the competitiveness in me, absolutely. I think I always want to be the best. We want to be. As recruiters, often recruitment individuals are very competitive, as I'm sure you've experienced. As part of the sale, right? We want to be good at what we do, and I'm really passionate about people. And I think going back to my earlier comment around when I was looking at jobs in London and I was frantically Googling what recruitment consultant is, it talks around, you've got to be passionate about people. It's not about a product. It's about the people you're working with. And I've always really enjoyed interacting with different people from different, backgrounds and, culture and things. So, yeah.
And did you perceive it as a risk to start your own business?
Yeah, definitely. I remember going home and telling my girl that train journey I was referencing, and I went home to her. I said, right, I'm going to do it.
Here's my notebook.
And she was like, okay. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to set up my own. And she was amazing. To this day, she's always been really supportive. So I'm very lucky. But I sort of said, this is the time. This just feels right. I'm going to do it. And I'm a bit of a gut instinct sort of person. So I said, this was the time. But yeah, it felt risky. I mean, God, I had probably like $3,000 in the bank or something. We'd had the mortgage. We just got the new house where we live now in Poole. So big mortgage, big sort of financial weight around my neck. So I was conscious of that. And as I say, we barely had anything there. But I said, well, look, I've got to try and make this work. So I went out, bought a cheap laptop, got a cheap phone, got a few bits and bobs set up, my accountants and stuff. And that was it. And then we were down to like the last £1,200. And I remember going down for a client pitch near Gatwick. And I remember just thinking, oh my, if this doesn't land, I'm, could be out of business before even in it.
Before you even start. And what did those early days really feel like? If you could give me 3 words that summed up those early days, what would they be, Martin?
Scary, exciting, and fun. It was fun. It was fun. It was just me.
Because you got no shackles.
Got no shackles. And, I had no team at the time. And I love managing people, which I'm sure we'll come on to. But it was just me. So, again, I was, the destiny of myself. And as long as I had to, put good work ethic in, which I think I've got, and, try and sort of build new relationships. Because, of course, I had a 6-month restriction. So I couldn't actually go and talk to all my old clients. So I had to pivot. I had to be a bit creative and had to look at new opportunities. Yeah, exactly. and just think who actually can I? Yeah. So my first bit of recruitment was sourcer procurement, but it was more kind of PMO, project management. And I pitched against like 3 agencies to go and like do a retainer, so essentially an upfront cost. And they gave it to me, and that was all. So I went down. I stayed overnight, and I ran an assessment centre, all stuff I'd never done before in a sector I hadn't really done. But we delivered it. We got the fees in, and I was on holiday with some mates, a very cheap holiday, as you can imagine, with some friends, and I got the first payment through, and I was just like, oh my God, I can breathe, and it worked out that gives me at least 3 months breathing room now for. So, and then it's just, I guess, sort of go from there. But yeah, scary, but it was fun.
And what were your early aspirations? What did you want Talent Drive to be?
I think I always wanted to be a market disruptor, which I think we've done. I think we've achieved. I wanted to build something, and I know that's again quite a traditional thing to say, and I didn't necessarily have a number in mind of what build looks like in terms of revenue or headcount. I just wanted to build something, and I wanted to have a couple of people to be on the journey with me. But if I'm honest, I didn't really have a prescriptive number in my head of I wanted to get to X revenue by Y date. And of course, 7 months in, a bit just to go back a step. I did that in the November when the restriction had lifted and I was able to contact business. I thought, here we go. Yeah. Got a little office in Bournemouth, which I think I started to get to know you then. And I got in first day, me and these four walls. I thought, great, I can go into really busy. And then I proposed to my my now wife away, came back, and I'm like, this is great. This is going to be the year, 2020, here we go. And then obviously COVID hit. And generally, the first few days when it was kind of sounded like something was going to happen, I looked at my phone, I was like, things are okay. People are still recruiting in my sector, so I don't think this is as bad as... And I woke up one morning, I think it was just as we were getting put into lockdown, and I literally had 8 jobs, and the night before I had 2 messages to say we're freezing it. So I woke up going, I've got 6 jobs, we're still good. And literally that morning it was an email, a WhatsApp, and by 3 o'clock it was done. I had no jobs, nothing.
Right. And how did that feel?
It was really scary, yeah. The excitement and the fun emotions from that had gone immediately, and it was scary because we'd had this big mortgage. My wife was in full-time work, or then fiance was in full-time work, but we were planning this wedding. Her wages couldn't cover our mortgage, and my $8,000 or what I had at the time in the bank was just diminishing. So,
answer this honestly: how close did you come to giving up on the business dream and going back to find paid employment? Very close. Right.
Very close. I think it was probably the late April when I was, I was sort of...
At your lowest ebb.
Yeah, that was really tough. And, you're in lockdown, you're in we all experienced obviously it, and particularly with a startup business, it was just, I couldn't do anything. the clients I could now talk to weren't hiring.
Yeah.
And I remember going for like a long beach walk with my other half, and I remember just thinking, what do I do? And I was thinking about contacting a couple of old businesses, but of course they're not hiring.
No.
They can't justify that headcount. They're in the same position.
Yeah.
They can't justify, my kind of headcount, I guess, in the firm anyway. So I sort of dusted myself off and said, look, I'm just going to double down on my marketing and do some pro bono work, which worked really well actually. So I contacted some of my old contacts and said, look, I'm definitely not coming in to pitch a fee, but can I help? And they were like, what? Okay. And I said, no, I'm just do it for free, but can I help? I need to keep my brain ticking over, right? I need to continue working. Okay. So I did that. I started doing loads of webinars, and I doubled down on my marketing. I remember my accountant at the time saying, well, don't increase your marketing. Look, we need to be...
Typical accountant.
Yeah, I know. He was like, no, that's not a good thing to do. But I did, and
it's counterintuitive.
Yeah,
it works, doesn't it?
But actually, I felt it was sort of a bit of a captive audience, actually. A lot of people were working online remotely. Yeah. And I saw that as a great opportunity to actually, I can talk more about Talent Drive and what we're about and do this stuff. And it's not a hard sales pitch. I'm not talking about, can I hire for you? Because again, no one's hiring. And that worked really well. And those people sort of stayed, I'd like to think I stayed sort of front and center of their mind when they were looking to hire and when restrictions did start lifting. So we did more in the marketing, more webinars. I did more press and publicity. I was tapping into local papers and people I never spoke to get our brand out there. And then we pivoted into some NHS work. So there was a couple of NHS trusts that were hiring. They were looking at medical buying, obviously with PPE and stuff. So I hired in a couple of their juniors, low-level roles. But hey, I didn't care. I'm not. It's income. Yeah. I think it's really important for anyone in business. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It's part. You've got to sort of do it. So I recruited a few things that were really junior, got some traction, got some momentum, and then as the year sort of progressed, we started to get a bit more. Opportunity, I guess, to hire properly again. Yeah. But it was scary. It was definitely some tough times and an experience, which an experience now that I'm really, grateful, clearly not grateful for the experience of COVID, but grateful for, the business being disrupted and actually stripping it back to what's really important.
Do you think you pivoted at all as a result, or do you think you actually stayed true to your principles and values?
I think I stayed true to principles and values. It's a really good question, because it was tempted at the time, as well as going through this process of what do I do, where do I work, was also to start recruiting into other areas outside of procurement.
Just go
grab something, go and hire an HR person at this business, or go and do some IT. But it's not my bag, and it wouldn't be true to me, and also what I was trying to do with Talent Drive. And I think people would also look at that and go, why is Martin suddenly recruiting IT people over in wherever? I made sure I stayed on the path, which at times was tempting to kind of go off that.
And you feel that's clearly served you well since?
Yeah, look, I'm really passionate about that, and also we'll come on to the new business and sort of where that's evolved. But I think I love the procurement community. They're a funny bunch. You get people that are incredibly introvert, number crunchy, just don't want to do any of this kind of stuff. They just want to do that. And you get some unbelievable charismatic leaders and people in procurement. You really get the full spectrum of character and personality, which I really love. So I almost imposter syndrome. I almost feel part of the community a little bit, but it's it's a sector that I've always enjoyed recruiting in.
Let's bring our listeners up to where you are today. So as we stand here today, where is Talent Drive? Where are you at as a business?
Yeah, so we're 10 strong across the whole of UK market, multi-million revenue organisation. We've recently hired a director to support me with the growth across that. And we set up last November Talent Finance. So we've ventured into the accountancy and finance world. So we have a guy, Amir, that's sort of leading that for me there. And we've created Talent Group. So essentially the premise that is, you've got Talent Drive, which is our core brand, which is a lot of the stories and things I'll be referencing today around that. That's been running now for 5.5 years. So that's specialised in procurement supply chain, all sectors. We do interim and permanent as well. And then Talent Finance, which is our new baby, which started in November last year. And that does very much accountancy and finance, all levels, part-time qualified, CFO, FD. And we have Amir, and then we have Matt, who's sort of straddling between the finance and the procurement side.
And I suppose with talent finance, that must feel like a startup all over again.
Yeah,
doesn't
it does. It does. It sort of evokes the emotions, but it's an interesting because of course, Amir's the MD, right? It's not me.
Yeah.
So I'm more kind of hands off in that business. I act as the CEO, but I'm there just to support him when he needs it and to essentially make sure it's operationally running correctly. And I sort of do as I tell him, the boring side. He can do the fun stuff and go out and engage with clients and recruit roles. But yeah, it's a different thing because I'm not, with the Talent Drive team, I'm there checking in and we have our one-to-ones and weekly things. Whereas, I've got to empower Amir to do
MD in the Talent Drive.
Spot on.
business.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So the plan is for that to other individuals to sort of upwardly sort of grow in their roles. But yeah, Amir's leading that. So it's kind of a bit of a strange one. I'm sort of sat there going, everything all right? And he's like, yeah, all good. And I'm just like, okay, I'll just crack. It's a new dynamic, but I love it.
Yeah,
And I think, absolutely. Yeah, you know that feeling as well. You definitely don't want to perceive as pestering them or nagging them, because that isn't my leadership style. But my hope is, with the talent finance, the logic of that was, it was a strategic play to help diversify our kind of revenue stream. We've got the procurement stuff, but it diversifies. Also, a lot of the procurement community do tend to report into finance in probably 85-90% of organizations that we work with. So they tend to recruit to a CFO and FD. So obviously we get access to that. It allows Talent Drive to have access to more the executive level procurement roles. And the third is the emotional one. It's that I enjoyed it. It's been a stressful 5.5 years, but I kind of want to take someone on that journey with me and do it again and support someone and maybe share some experiences of things not to do or maybe to do. And I definitely don't sit here and proclaim that I'm some sort of experienced entrepreneur, but I'll at least be able to offer some guidance and support too.
Got life experience.
Got some life experience now, and the plan is to hopefully grow some of the talent group stuff out as all the businesses grow.
Exciting times. And when you sit here now, we're August 24, so 4 years on from probably the depth of there not being a Talent Drive business nearly.
Yeah.
You must take a lot of pride in what you've achieved to get to the 10 people, to have added the other business stream. When you reflect on those four years, how would you sum up that part of the journey?
So I'm really bad at self-reflection. I know it's something, but yeah, look, I am really, really proud of what we've been able to achieve, and I generally wouldn't have been able to do it without the great people that I've had in the business, both I think now and also people that have been on the journey, and maybe if they've left on the journey as well. They're all part of that. But yeah, I sit here, really proud, really focused, probably more than ever, and driven for what we're looking to do. I want to scale it. I see opportunity still. I massively see huge potential in finance. I've got a couple of other things that I see potential with. I want to make sure I don't rush off to too many shiny things at once and focus on the core businesses. But look, we're really excited for the year to come, the rest of the year to come. And 2025, we're looking at international as well, because we're quite UK centric at the moment, so that we're seeing lots of opportunities internationally across both businesses. And there's loads of other stuff, but
So you having said you're not great at self-reflection, I'm going to ask you some self-reflection questions.
This will be interesting.
Here we go. So it might be quite interesting, this segment. So if you look back on the Martin Smith I have sat in front of me now, compared to the Martin Smith 5.5 years ago, what's changed about Martin?
So I think I'm more focused on the quality of what we're doing and the people. So I think probably just to explain that a bit more, I think when I set up, I wasn't thinking, I'm going to have X numbers. I think it's very easy early on, when you have early success in a business, you get caught up and a bit obsessed with numbers, whether that's around people, headcount, or that's the vanity of having an office space or a London number, and then also your revenue and things. And I think people can sometimes get a little bit, almost a bit cocky about it, really. And I think I probably fell into that trap. Whereas now, reflecting, that doesn't matter. Have I got good people in my business? Yes. Do I trust them? Do they share my values and the values of the business? Are they authentic? Are they empathetic? Are they driven? Are they competitive? All those sort of things. Yes. That's more important than the number. So I think my change from then to now is not be so focused on the number, but it's more around the quality of the people. What are our clients saying about us right now? Hopefully some good. Hopefully lots of good. Whereas before, I think I was just a bit sidetracked by, we got to get here and we got to do this number and we're at this revenue, we need to get here. So I think I've been focusing more on the quality over quantity, I guess.
Listeners to the Evolve to Succeed podcast are probably bored of me saying this, but I think that reflects on one of my true principles, which is, focus on creating a great business that serves its customers. And the rewards and the money and the esteem will come. Focus on the money, rewards and esteem, and typically that's when you end up in a bad place.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been so many learns on the way, like anyone when they set up a business. But I think for me, reflecting on where we are today, the business is only good as its people. You'll hear that phrase a lot, but it's so true. I couldn't stress that enough. You are only as good as the people you have in your team, because they're representing your brand day to day.
A very quick break from this week's episode, which I hope you're enjoying. If you are enjoying, please remember, do help us and help yourself to make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing and reviewing the episode. So that's it. Short interlude from me. Let's get back to the conversation. So leading on from that, if we went back to you age 21, 22, just coming out of university, deciding that maybe recruitment's for you, and you're going around London on the tube, job interview to find your first job in recruitment, what advice would you give yourself, Martin, if you could go back in time?
Don't wear a jumper on the tube because it's a hot day. No, I would probably say focus on a business that will actually support your growth. And I went to sort of 3 or 4 interviews before I landed the role that I then went into. And you go into these fancy buildings in around Bank and Aldgate and stuff, and there was amazing buildings, but I was almost a bit overwhelmed by some of the vanity really in some of these organisations. When I went to the business that I then joined, they didn't have a flash office, they didn't have flash computers or anything like that, but the people was what I bought into. So I think for me, that's the bit that I sort of honed in on. But I was tempted to go to the ones where it was the shiny things again. It goes back to that. So I guess my advice would be, don't focus on the shiny things, focus on the people. Are they people that you're going to, small offices, we work a lot of our lives, you've got to be able to work with those individuals and actually get a feeling that they're going to have your back. I think that's what I would probably say.
And you've talked about your partner, you've also got a son as well that's been born during the course of this whole journey. How do you enable this kind of epitome of everything everybody talks about, but work-life balance, but how do you get balance in your life between being a business owner that's got supercharged drive, that's ambitious, that's taking a business somewhere, with those other things in life that are clearly, even through this discussion, the listeners will see are important to you? So how do you try and get that balance between the two, Martin?
Well, it's hard, and I would say the first year of Leo being he's just turned 2, the first year of him being born, I wasn't as present as I needed to be, and I think that was hard because we were really in scale time when he was born and it was that first year, and there were times where I should have been there for him more than I think I was. So I think almost I've managed to get the balance more by not getting the balance, if that makes sense. And you again, you learn from a lot of your failures and your mistakes. So I think that was incredibly hard. My wife's self-employed as well, so she, like me, she's dictated by her clients and work rather than that consistent sort of revenue coming in, I guess. So it was definitely a juggling act, which we couldn't have done without our parents and the we're very lucky we've got a good network around us. But I think it was almost that reset at the end of last year, coming into this year, and said, I wrote, we've got a little whiteboard at home where my wife writes sort of little quotes and things that we're going to achieve that week and things. And I wrote down just be present.
Okay.
And I've kept that, and I've kept it on my phone, and I've kept that message just to say, be more present. So I'm quite disciplined with my time now, that I ensure that sort of 7 a.m. till 8, that's Leo time. Yeah. It's not work emails, that's not anything. It's early morning, we're up early because he gets up early. Yeah. So that is purely on him. That's no focus on anything else. And then I try now to make sure I finish about 4:30 when he gets dropped off, or not, unfortunately, that's the day done, but I do 4:30, so sort of 5:30, 6, where I'll have dinner and bath time and all that sort of stuff, and then go back and do some work for an hour or two before sort of switching off properly. Now, I've been very fortunate to be able to get in that position because we've got a great team that allow me to do that, which I'm very blessed with. It's not always been that way, but this year it's almost that be strict, that hour, almost the bookends of the day. That's Leo time, and then I can go back but my team know that. So if they're going to try and contact me at 5 o'clock, they know that I'm trying to overcook his pasta or whatever, you know. Yeah.
It's interesting because I was going to ask you, and I think you've just answered the question. Because one of the things I admire about you is that hunger, that drive, that success that you want to achieve, but you always seem, perception is, you always seem very grounded. And I think that response sums up possibly why. But I'd also agree with you that I think, first probably 2 years of my daughter Alex's life, when she came along, I was a year into the business.
Okay, yeah, so
similar to you, I was not there, I wasn't present. I remember her coming home and me going straight back to work, kind of thing. And then
it's hard, isn't it? Yeah.
Somebody said to me, but just remember, you as a business owner, you might not have that opportunity to always be there, but be present.
Yeah.
And that was nearly the switch.
Yeah.
That went, okay, right, when I am there, I need to be present in the moment and not looking at my phone and not doing the other things that distract us.
Yeah. Because it's easy to do that, right? Our phones, we're so accessible now. It's very easy just to quickly do a work email while he's watching TV or whatever it may be. But actually, I need to be immersive because they do, as I'm told by everyone that's got older children, they do grow up so quickly. And I don't want to miss that. And, again, going back to my dad, growing up, who again, big role model for me, he was away a lot. And he was present with me and my brother at the weekends, of course he was. But in the week, he was away so much. And I remember I used to struggle with that. I used to want to sit and watch the football with Dad on midweek or whatever it may be. And I almost said to him, and I get it, it was his job and he had to do that. But I always said I would try ensure that I was a bit more present and a bit more visible at home. And again, I'm very lucky that people around me make sure I keep me on my feet and keep me grounded. And thank you for saying that, because that's something that's really important to me, that always stay humble. I think anyone that goes into business, don't get too big for your boots. And I see it, sure you have as well. Don't get too big for your boots. Always focus on the people that matter, and they'll be on the journey no matter what. Whether you're working in a call center or you're running a business or what, it doesn't matter. It's about the people, and the people should follow you on that journey no matter what. And I feel really strongly about that.
Absolutely, completely agree with that. Right, I'm going to let you off to self-reflection now.
Okay.
I want to get back to talk about recruitment.
Yep.
And about kind of where you see the future of the recruitment industry going. We're all, whatever sector we're in, we're all talking about AI. We're all talking about how that's going to change our industries. But, where do you see this model of recruitment going, and what challenges and opportunities do you think that presents, Martin?
Yeah, sure. So I definitely think that tech's a massive part of that. I referenced earlier on about being very accessible. When I first started, every business would contact an agency to go and find them the talent. So since that journey 16 years ago to now, you've got the rise of internal recruiters, the access that LinkedIn gives you, other job boards. There's lots of that sort of AI now, ChatGPT. Everyone's accessible. Generally speaking, in business, you can find someone on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So therefore, if you're hiring, you're going to go on LinkedIn. You're going to talk to old team members that you wanted to work for again, potentially work with again, and you're going to revert back to your HR function that likely are going to invest in some level of internal recruitment. Yeah. So you've got those battles before it would then go to an agency partner. And the other thing that probably came in about 10 years ago, and it's been more prevalent now, is the sort of RPO model, so the recruitment sort of outsource model. Oh, okay. So essentially they'd outsource all their roles for a set fee to X business. So they would sweep up whether it's an IT job or procurement or HR or whatever it may be. So that's something that we've seen a lot now. So agencies will still be there. I'm not going to say it's dying off, but I think it's just harder. You've got to work more, you've got to work harder for your fee really. So I think recruitment agencies and recruitment individuals are going to thrive. They've got to be adaptable to AI. They've got to be able to understand how to work the algorithms and the searches and things that are there now. I think you've also got to accept that some of the more traditional kind of lower level recruitment will be done by other people. It'll be self-automated, it'll be swept in-house, or it will just be done, not via an agency or via an RPO potentially. Yeah. So they'll become more niche. There'll still be a need, but I do think you're just going to have to be adaptable to technology because it's here to stay.
And you think the number of opportunities that come out to recruitment agencies will then start?
I think it would diminish.
About quality and being a specialist.
Yeah, quality and be a specialist, and almost, you want to be their go-to as a niche partner when they maybe have a really, really niche role in whatever it may be. So it'll be less. I mean, we hope revenue will stay, but I think organisations now need to pivot and pivot their service offering, so it's not just come to us as an agency to get fees. I spoke earlier around, do you do a podcast? Is there other marketing opportunities? It's almost what other services you get as part of that. Because businesses will be probably a bit more reluctant to hand over their cash just to transact with an agency. They'll want to know what else they can do. Salary surveys, market benchmarking. Can they do some social media stuff for them and promote the roles as well as recruit them? Can they help with the interview processes, etc.? So I think they're going to want a lot more for their money moving forward.
So it's this thought leadership piece that kicks in.
Absolutely, yeah. More of a one-stop shop service offering rather than just, a transactional fee.
Yeah, okay. And what about procurement? This is quite a big question because procurement is so wide, isn't it? But when you think about procurement, what do you see happening in that kind of sector and specialism?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start on the tech piece first, and I'll come on to the wider. So I think from a tech point of view, again, whether you're buying HR services or working with a creative agency in a marketing perspective, technology is still around you. So I think procurement professionals that are going to thrive are going to need to be adaptable to tech. They're going to have to upskill themselves on it, learn the software, suppliers or whatever that they're going to need to work with. I think that's going to be really important, irrespective of what category you're buying. I think the ESG and sustainability piece is going to be massive. Any organisation of any size are having to be conscious around, and rightfully so, around their carbon footprint and actually making sure that they are being sustainable when they are looking to buy their products. So whether that's a direct spend, whether that's looking for buying bananas, or whether that's buying IT services, they need to ensure that is being done in a sustainable way, and that will continue. So I think procurement people having ESG at the forefront of their mind is going to be essential, and that's only going to grow. It's only going to increase as we become more conscious of the environment and conscious of global warming and all the things that are out there. So procurement are really driving that. So I see real opportunity there. We're seeing more and more ESG being immersed within procurement. So I think it's a really, really exciting time for the sector, as well as the tech and AI. I can see, and we're seeing some more sort of self-automation at some of the more junior level. So like you're raising purchase orders and some of that more transactional stuff, that's being automated. So therefore your buyer level and your procurement manager level people are having to do more of the strategic stuff, basically. And then the final point is probably from where I started to now, it's that whole IQ to EQ shift. So it used to be that you've got to have 10 years of buying marketing services or whatever it may be. That's an essential. Whereas nowadays, yes, some level of supplier knowledge is important, but it's more around the emotional skill set. So whenever we're briefed now, it's actually someone that can be adaptable, flex their communication style depending if they're talking to a CFO or a supplier or whatever it may be. So it's more around those soft skills, more around that emotional intelligence now than purely a technical skill set that's needed. So that's been a massive shift. So it's even more important from an agency perspective that you're doing the screening correctly and you're meeting people for coffees and going, is this person charismatic? Are they engaging? Are they thoughtful? Are they, rather than just looking at a CV and going, well, they've got 5 years experience in that.
Those attributes.
Yeah. So that's probably the three main, I guess, areas that are changing.
Brilliant. Some great insights there into the kind of industry and everything that's happening, Martin. I'd just like to touch on, you've talked a lot about your team. So I'd quite like to talk about how you foster this kind of positive culture and environment for the team, given that effectively you are a remote business, although the team do get together and you're there in London a couple of days a week, but you are effectively a remote business. People are important to you. Again, the listeners would have heard that time and time again during the course of this conversation. So how do you foster that positive environment?
I think it comes with trust. My kind of leadership style or mantra is kind of, I trust everyone implicitly when I meet them. And I don't buy into this whole, you have to earn my trust. I think that's nonsense. That's just my opinion. I think naturally when I meet someone, I'll trust them implicitly. And it's almost for you to hopefully not let me down and lose that trust. So I think creating a trusting culture and environment, I think is really important. If people feel trusted, they'll feel valued. If they feel valued, they're going to work hard and go the extra mile, rather than me telling them to can you do another call at 6:30 or whatever it may be? They'll just go and do it and action that. We focus really hard on the culture, as you can imagine, and it's a huge thing. When anyone joins our business, I make sure everyone meets them, which sometimes might feel a bit excessive because now we're at 11, soon to be 12 headcount. That's quite a lot. But actually, it's really important that, my marketing manager, that she's going to work really closely with this individual. I want to make sure that she's got good buy-in, whether that's our ops manager, whether that's one of my managers, whether that's one of the more junior consultants in the team. They're still going to work with them. We're a small, close-knit team. So it's really, really important that everyone feels connected. But I think it's a good sell on both sides because the candidate feels valued. I've got to meet, everyone, and I've got to get a real good cross range of everyone in the business. And I think the people in the team, hopefully, they feel really empowered and they feel valued. It's not just about the managers and what they say. I want everyone to have a voice. So I think that allows, hopefully, to create a bit more of a positive culture. And I'm very and I think the other thing is, and again, I've learned this without being sort of negative, of perhaps in the past where leadership hasn't been as honest and transparent. I like to think I'm very honest and transparent. We have a P&L report, which I share with our leadership team every single month. I'm very honest with the team members. If it's a junior, I'll say, look, we're interviewing this person next week, or we're thinking about this. I'll share that in the team meetings every week because people want to know what's going on. I won't bore them to tears with every single conversation I have, but if there's something potentially that may impact them or the business, I want to let them know. Yeah. So I think it's just transparent as well about what we're thinking of doing next, where we are with it, and just allowing the team to have that focus all the time. Okay, Martin's thinking about this sector, or our profitability is this at the moment, or we're doing this, or
that communication is really important, isn't it? And that does foster. That
makes it feel positive and feel bought into it, rather than just you're there to do a job. This is your boss. I'm over here, and I'll speak to you in a month and just check in.
But it is also important to share the challenges, isn't it? Because then they can contribute and they can make a difference.
Yeah.
And you're not going to surprise them in a few months down the line to say, well, actually, we're now going to do this.
I find that hard. I agree, but I find that hard because you're told, aren't you, that you're sort of meant to be that duck on the water, gliding and the legs frantically, and your team almost seeing you sort of gliding. I agree with you. I think sometimes you've got to be a bit transparent if it's been a tough month or a couple of things haven't quite landed. You sometimes have to have those difficult conversations. But I find it hard in leadership to get the balance.
There is a balance thing. Yeah. So I think it's about creating an awareness.
Yes.
That there is ripples on the water.
Yeah.
But without looking like it's a panic.
Yeah.
Or there is something desperate. But I think creating awareness allows them to contribute, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I haven't always got that balance right. I think I've always wanted to be, no, everything's fine. And I try and self-solve a lot of it. And I think sometimes actually probably just, share the burden, or at least sort of, share a bit more with them on some of the challenges, not just the positive stuff.
And the future for Talent Drive, I think we kind of alluded to that. You want to see it grow. You want to see some additional specialisms land. But, my question would be, what does good look like for Talent Drive and Martin in 3 years' time?
So, we definitely want to grow. So I think having an international presence, I think building out our interim sort of desk, our interim revenue is going to be really important for us. We talked to the team a lot around our sort of 2030 vision, which is essentially we're going to be scaling to hopefully one day sell and have wealth generation for all. And again, goes back to the transparency. I'm very honest about that. I think a lot of people go in business and they just sort of tick by and, people go, well, what's kind of going on? What is the journey? But the journey for us is we grow, we scale, and then hopefully we sell. And if 2030, doesn't happen, that's okay. But we have ambition, and that's where we're trying to strive to. So I think over the next sort of 4.5, 5 years, that's the real push. So if we can get more diversification of what we're doing, i.e. internationally, i.e. more interim, doing more in the public sector as well, growing the Talent Finance brand, hopefully another brand potentially under there as well. I think that's probably what good looks like, and not be obsessed on the numbers.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So let's do a few quick fire questions, shall we?
Okay. All right.
Here we go. Morning person or night owl?
Morning.
Favourite podcast other than Talent Talks?
Diary of a CEO.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Pick up bits that you like from others and then create your own persona.
Perfect. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
David Beckham.
Oh, this is a quick fire. I'm gonna have to say why.
Just think he's great.
Okay.
I think the adversity he's had in his career. If you haven't watched his documentary on Netflix, the adversity he's had in his life, and so to pivot back and to keep. a healthy, happy marriage and his lovely children. All that, I think that's amazing, and to be really talented at what he was at football. I'm not a Man U fan, by the way, but yeah, okay. Beckham.
3 things you can't live without?
My wife, my son, and chocolate.
Okay. Describe yourself in 3 words.
Driven, charismatic, impatient.
Brilliant. And if you weren't in recruitment, what would you be doing?
I'd have a little coffee shop in Puerto Palencia in Spain.
And
which is random, I know. I've always wanted to own a coffee shop, but not in this country.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe one day.
2030.
Yeah.
What's your one goal that you're currently working on?
International expansion in terms of our presence, yeah.
And if it was something personally you're working on?
Patience.
Okay, brilliant. That's the end of the quick fire.
Thank you. Hopefully that was all right.
Now, if this was the Evolve to Succeed podcast, I would finish the podcast with one question, and I can't get away from that habit, Martin.
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
And I think it'd be a nice way of rounding up this really great conversation we've had, which hopefully gives, your customers, your team, anybody that interacts with Talent Drive, this kind of insight into you, the person. So I'm going to end with this question. So what is your personal definition of success?
To work with people that want to work with you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks, Warren. Really appreciate it. I'll say thanks for joining me, but thanks for you being the host today.
It has been a bit weird hosting somebody else's podcast.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and thank you for all your time as well. And thank you for being a little bit gentle with me on the questions. Brilliant. In places.
During the course of that conversation, I sort of reflected quite a lot with Martin about his own story and his own journey. And what I loved about the conversation was his honesty, but also, and I did mention this during the course of the conversation, the fact that he is so grounded given the success he has had. And whatever industry you're in, obviously Martin's in recruitment, he gave some really good tips there, I think, about perhaps how AI is going to affect industry, but also some tips about how do you foster good culture and how do you communicate with your teams. So I hope there was some useful insights for you. If you've enjoyed that episode, please do subscribe to the Evolve to Succeed podcast, rate and review, it will really help us. And if you enjoyed the conversation, why don't you go and find the Talent Talks podcast on all your favourite channels. Till next week, thank you for listening.